Another month has gone by in the basketball world, which means it is once again time for us to drop a mock draft. Throughout the basketball season leading up to the real thing, I release one mock draft per month in order to continually monitor the top prospects in this draft class and keep you all up to date on where they stack up against their peers. Since the one that I released last month, there have already been quite a few prospects rising quickly in the eyes of NBA scouts that will be discussed later in this video, and things have been shaken up a good bit. The order that the teams are selecting in this video are also based on the current NBA standings. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but it also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. Starting with the first pick in the draft, the Detroit Pistons select Nikola Topic from Serbia. I said in the intro that there were a few big-time risers over the last month, and Topic was arguably the biggest of them all. Topic is having an unbelievable season in the Adriatic League this year, leading it in assists while also being the second leading scorer in the league, and his skill set is very reminiscent of some of the best rising guards in the NBA currently. When you watch him play, you see a bit of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Halliburton, and even some shades of Luka Doncic as a lead guard that can break you down off the dribble with his shiftiness and footwork, and then he dominates with a more skillful approach instead of having to rely on explosive athleticism. He's a very smart playmaker with impressive court vision and touch inside the arc, and while he hasn't been shooting the three ball that well, I'm not really concerned about his jumper long term because of how good of a shooter he is everywhere else on the floor, while also being an incredibly good free throw shooter. Next up with the second pick, the San Antonio Spurs select Alexander Sarr from France. Sarr is playing in the Australian NBL League this year, and before the season began, he was turning a lot of heads in the team's scrimmages against the G League Ignite program, where he was getting buckets inside and out while blocking so many shots at the rim, and in a draft without a true top prospect sticking out above the rest of the pack, he is firmly in the conversation to be the first name off the board as well. It may just come down to which position the team prefers to draft. The Spurs just hit a home run landing Victor Wembanyama in last year's draft, and while Wembanyama is a monstrous 7'4" tall, he plays more like a forward than a center, so I'm imagining the Spurs salivating about the potential of adding the 7'1" beast that is Alex Sarr to pair with him in the front court, and have those two cause havoc on both ends. Sarr is already pretty strong for his size and age. He has good hands, he rolls well and finishes strong at the basket, and even has a budding jump shot. Next, with the third pick, the Washington Wizards select Isaiah Collier from USC. Collier is looking like the best prospect currently playing college basketball, and as a point guard, there's a lot to like about his game. He's got good size for the position at 6'5", he's strong-bodied and uses that to absorb contact on his drives, he's an aggressive player who attacks the rim hard, and when he beats his man, he has a natural feel for playmaking for those around him. What worries me about his game is that he's inconsistent at best as a perimeter shooter, and he commits way too many turnovers right now. As a rebuilding team with a few scorers already in the fray, the Wizards could use a pure point guard to add to their young core, so this would be a very good fit for him, especially being able to learn from a guy like Tyus Jones, who is the hallmark of efficiency and decision-making. Up next, with the fourth pick, the Portland Trail Blazers select Ron Holland from G League Ignite. Ron Holland entered the year as one of the most highly touted prospects, and while he is still in the conversation to be potentially the #1 pick this year, because there's a lot of basketball left to be played, he didn't really get off to the best start in his G League tenure. G League Ignite have been one of the worst teams in the G League this year, getting blown out on several occasions, and Holland has been scoring a solid 19 points per game, but he hasn't quite shown the flashes of a shot-creating wing that you want from a #1 overall pick. His explosive athleticism has absolutely been on display, and he's a good cutter and slasher to the basket, but in half-court settings he has struggled with self-creation, and his three ball has been hit or miss, making just 25% of his shots from deep so far. Portland, luckily, have a lot of shot creation and playmaking in their young backcourt already though, so this would be a good landing spot for him to slide in on the wing. Next, with the 5th pick, the Memphis Grizzlies select Maras Buzelis from G League Ignite. I said this in my first mock draft video last month, but the hope was that when Bellis and Holland teamed up on G League Ignite, they would showcase why they're the 2 top prospects in this class. But that hasn't quite happened to this point. Buzelis missed most of the early season due to injury, and since his return to the court, he has slowly been integrating himself back into the swing of things, but he's got a long way to go if he wants to get back into the conversation of possibly being the #1 pick. At his best, he should be a well-balanced wing player with the skill and shot making to be used as a secondary playmaker and the defensive versatility to make a big impact, but he needs to get back to full strength so we can see that on display. Next, with the 6th pick, the Utah Jazz select Zachary Rasheed from France. Rasheed has an incredibly high floor compared to other top prospects because at 6'8", he is a lights-out shooter who moves really well without the ball in his hands to get to his spots, and if you give him an inch of space, he is firing that thing with a quick trigger and making you pay. He'll do exceptionally in a 3-and-D role at the next level, but I don't want to limit his upside by calling him just a 3-and-D player. He may not go on to be a go-to scorer, but good basketball teams need a guy like him to balance out the lineup who can still impact the game on both ends, and in this class, he's the best of that type of bunch. Next, with the 7th pick, the Charlotte Hornets select Jacoby Walter from Baylor. Walter has been steadily climbing up draft boards this season because he has an undeniable knack for scoring the basketball. When it comes to putting the ball in the hoop, he's a confident 3-level scorer with a quick release from 3, a useful floater and mid-range pull-up in his arsenal, and the ability to get to the basket comfortably. He has been a bit streaky early on, but the 3 games that he's had scoring 23 or more points through just 9 games played already show that he's capable of getting hot and doing a lot of damage. Up next, with the 8th pick, the Chicago Bulls select Stefan Castle from UConn. Castle came into the year with some buzz, and his first 2 collegiate games were mostly a success, but then he suffered a knee injury that held him out of the next few weeks, and since his return to the court afterwards, he's been slowly working his way back into action. Because of this, it's hard to knock him too much, so we'll still bank on him getting back to the player that he can be, impacting both ends of the floor, making plays, and generating offense as both a scorer and a passer. Next, with the 9th pick, the San Antonio Spurs, who own the Toronto Raptors pick, select Rob Dillingham from Kentucky. With the Spurs potentially having 2 picks in the top 10 this year, they can take the best player available early on and then draft a high upside positional need here at point guard, as that is easily their biggest weak spot right now. Dillingham is another player shooting up draft boards because he is a silky smooth ball handler who gets to his spots with ease, his passing talent has been translating flawlessly to the college game, and his ability to create space off the dribble and then knock down shots has exceeded all expectations, as he's knocking down a whopping 51% of his threes early on, and a lot of them have been coming off the dribble. And then, to round out the top 10, the Atlanta Hawks select Donovan King from UConn. Donovan is a big boy standing at 7'2", and he uses every bit of his size and strength to overwhelm his opposition, especially when protecting the paint on defense. He's got outstanding defensive instincts, blocking a lot of shots and altering plenty more. He has soft touch around the basket scoring the ball, he sets nice hard screens, and while there are concerns about his ability to handle quicker big men at the next level, he should have a comparable impact to a player like Walker Kessler in Utah. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below which prospect you're most excited about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.